All right, let's continue our conversation about Stoicism. We were going through the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. We have landed in Book 7, and there are two sections that I think are quite interesting. Maybe not perfectly related, but I rather like them together, so I'm going to try to combine the two. 67. The way nature has blended you into the compound whole does not prevent you drawing a boundary around yourself and keeping what is your own in your own control. Always remember this. Remember too that the happy life depends on very little, and do not think, just because you have given up hope of becoming a philosopher or a scientist, you should therefore despair of a free spirit, integrity, social conscience, obedience to God. It is wholly possible to become a divine man without anybody's recognition. And then 69, section 69. Perfection of character is this: to live each day as if it were your last, without frenzy, without apathy, without pretense. So there are two themes in there that I find interesting. The first section, I think, is something that we should not forget. I think especially when we are young, we have many ambitions along the lines of, I'm going to do this and that, and I'm going to be fantastic at this, and etc. I've talked about this before, but that's definitely how I entered my PhD. I felt that I was going to blow everyone away with my skills, or I don't really want to say intelligence, but my skills, my things I had learned, my insights, etc. And that was arrogant and foolish. And when you get a little older, then you see that that's just what it was. And I've talked about this before, so I don't want to talk about that for too long. But you have that image of, I'm going to be the next best thing, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. And I think what Marcus Aurelius is saying here is that it's beautiful. Remember too that the happy life depends on very little, and do not think just because you have given up hope of becoming a philosopher or a scientist, you should therefore despair of a free spirit, integrity, social conscience, obedience to God. So the first part of this statement with the draw up a boundary around yourself, keep what is your own in your own control. Yeah, this is something we've talked about a lot of times, but it remains good to reiterate. Some things are within your control, some things are without your control or outside of your control. And of course, the real trick in life lies in figuring out what is and what is not within your control. That we've talked about a lot of times, but of course, that is one of the founding principles of Stoicism in the first place. But now I'm more concerned with that other part. And I think what you have to remember if you wish to practice Stoicism, but to be honest, I think this applies to no matter what you try to do in life, just trying to be a good person. This is something to remember, but it's a very hard thing to do. That is that you must strive to be a good person. Remember, Stoic ethics are virtue ethics. The most important thing in life, brackets, to be happy, is to be virtuous. And virtue lies in a lot of things, like we've talked about before, the cardinal virtues, wisdom and justice and courage and temperance, sure. But let's try to translate that into a very pragmatic thing. A pragmatic thing. If you wish to be a Stoic, then you must try to be virtuous as you can be, to do the right thing. But what does that mean? Well, there are a lot of things that we do throughout the day, small things, but things that are decidedly unvirtuous. And when you start to think about these things, when you start to really apply these, sorry, I was just looking outside because there's rain clouds all of a sudden, sorry. When you start to think about these things, when you start to apply these Stoic principles to your everyday life, here's some of the things you can do. Think about something like gossiping. How often do we send messages to our loved ones along the lines of, oh, look at what this person said, or oh, look at what they did. It's gossiping. Let alone, I mean, this is COVID time, so we don't really hang out a lot with colleagues. I've got the feeling I sure don't. But think about what that means. You may not be in an office setting right now, but think about friends or family members. Think of neighbors, whatever social circles you have, and how easily we gossip. We gossip about people, how easily we talk about people behind their backs. It may not be to discredit them or to speak badly of them, but we gossip. We do it almost mindlessly, I think. And you could think of other applications of this as well, because the idea here is that if you're doing that, even something as small as that, that's not virtuous. You cannot sell under any circumstance gossiping as virtuous or speaking badly of a person as virtuous. We've talked about things stoically that you can do to deal with that when people does that about you or behind your back. Oh, there's a moth. I'm not easily distracted. I'm actually not. It's just this video. Sorry. So doing those things, right, is not virtuous. So even those small things are little things you can change. You can stop now. Right now. Stop gossiping. But really try to pay attention to how hard that is, because it's hard. I've started to pay attention to it at some point. And I notice how easy it is. I like to think of myself as a straightforward person who doesn't really gossip, but then I notice how many messages I send to people I love throughout the day of, oh, he said this, oh, she said this, oh, they did this. Talk about all kinds of people, friends, colleagues, whatever. But even if it's not meant in a bad way, not meant to hurt someone, right? You are doing something that you don't have to do. And you're doing something that's not really virtuous, is it? And that's just gossiping. Think of the other things he says here. Blah, blah, blah. Free spirit, integrity, social conscience, obedience to God. Well, social conscience too. I am not a vegetarian. I do eat meat. But when I purchase meat, I try to purchase quote-unquote happy meat, if there is such a thing. But in any case, not the type of meat of animals who've had a completely terrible life. I know they're still butchered. I know this is a whole different discussion. I choose to do that. But then I try to do the best thing I can by the way I select those products. Or eggs, or whatever. You can't always do all of these things. But I think just becoming aware of doing these kinds of things, negatively or positively, can have quite an impact on the way you lead your life. And these are small things. I'm not talking about do X and there will be world peace. I don't think any single person can accomplish that. But you can do small things. This sounds like a really big cliche, but to make the world a little better. But to make the world a little better, you have to do those things. And when you do those things, then you make yourself a little better. And if everyone would do those things, then I think the world would be a much better place. But the problem is we don't all do those things. We do continue our gossiping, our talking behind people's backs, all this kind of stuff. We do it. I'm not trying to harp specifically on the gossiping part, but let's face it. When was the last time you were about to send someone a gossipy email, a WhatsApp message, or say something gossipy, and you stopped yourself? Now be aware of it. This is your homework. But try it. Try it. Try to catch yourself. See what happens. Because I've been trying and sometimes I still slip up. This is the way. This is the way. This is progress, right? You do a little better. You think, oh, next time. I shouldn't have done that. I won't do that again next time. Hard, but it gets easier. And the fun thing is you start to live much more deliberately. And you start to make more deliberate choices about what you share with people. When I share this, Is it really the virtuous thing to do, or am I trying to make fun of someone? Or trying to make someone look bad, or whatever? And if the answer is yes, why? Why would you do that? Would you enjoy it if someone else did that about you, etc.? You get where that's going. Second thing I think that's a brief one to say is that I forget whose quote it is, but like I can't even quote the quote verbatim. But quoted loosely verbatim, as my friend Joram would say, think about what it means to be a good person behind closed doors. It's easy for me to sit here and record a video, the virtue, but then you actually do it as well. What if nobody is watching? What if you can't get caught? Will you still do the virtuous thing? Or will you... Nobody will notice. You know? So that I like. And I was triggered to think of that by, it is wholly possible to become a divine man without anybody's recognition. Now, it's a bit more than that. You can do the right thing in absence of acknowledgement. You can do the right thing without anyone telling you, wow, you did the right thing. You know what I'm saying? You can always do that because you always have that choice. And you make the right choice, the wrong choice. You do A, you do B. Right or wrong. Now, I'm simplifying ethics considerably here. But again, do you really benefit from sending that gossipy message? Or could you also not do that thing? And then think, pretty sweet. Didn't do that. It's pretty good. The second statement, short, but I find it very nice. Memento mori, to remember death, figures quite strongly in Marcus Aurelius' work. And perfection of character is this: to live each day as if it were your last, without frenzy, without apathy, without pretense. Why, it almost can't be clearer and more concise. Those who live in frenzy, those who live apathetically, who resist change, who are not perturbed by anything, even good things, who are not perturbed by the things they should be perturbed by, those who are pretentious, well, they will suffer. And if you live every day as if it is your last, I think that ties into that previous statement as well. If today is my last day, do I want my friends to think of me, well, he sure was a gossiper? Or do I want them to think he was a good man? The choice is yours, because it always is. What you do is one of those things that always is under your control. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm definitely not saying I've always done the right thing, because it's hard. But when you make conscious effort, it gets easier. Not easy, easier. The more you do it, the easier it gets. And then live. Live every day as if it is your last, because for all you know, it is. And that can be a strong guiding principle in my mind as to how to do things. How to be a good person. Or at the very least, the best person you can be given the circumstances you're in. And that is it. I hope this was useful. I'll see you again soon for more talk about Stoicism. Bye.